Hi everyone, thank you for dropping in second day of the week, second day of our TNT week. I just wanted to notify you that this Saturday, rather than doing an update on our resort, we're going to be doing a live program. We haven't done one for about 5 weeks, so I thought, it's about time. So this Saturday, 9 a.m. Thai time, it's going to be at least an hour with you and me, and hopefully one of these, as we discuss anything that's on your mind. So we look forward to that this Saturday, 9 a.m. live TNT. Let's go to some, they call it breaking news. It was yesterday, and it says all 500 elected MPs get election commission's stamp of approval. So this has come sort of out of nowhere. There was going to be a couple more weeks at least waiting for all these MPs to be endorsed, but no, all 500 elected MPs have been endorsed. Well, there is a caveat. The Election Commission's certified all 500 elected MPs as per the Constitution, and the first House of Representatives meeting will be held within 15 days. The Election Commission yesterday endorsed all 400 constituency MPs and the 100 party list MPs. When asked, of course, about the shareholding case against potential Prime Minister Peter Limjaroenrat, he said the Election Commission was looking into the matter, adding that only some of the details had been verified. The Election Commission was also looking into complaints lodged during the election, and such a process might be completed within a year. So all these MPs endorsed, but a sort of a Damocles sword hanging over them until all these complaints have been sorted out. And looking into some more coverage of this from BangkokPost.com, House to meet within 15 days, new PM to be named before the end of July. And just going through some of the salient points here, the selection of the new House Speaker and his 2 deputies is expected to take place on the first day of the new parliamentary session, but the parliamentary selection of Thailand's next Prime Minister will take place only after the selection of the House Speaker gets royal endorsement. Now, it doesn't say how long that might take, but usually that wouldn't take more than a week. And the endorsement contradicted previous media reports which said 71 MPs elect in 37 constituencies might be suspended over election fraud complaints. When asked if the Election Commission will next seek the Constitutional Court's interpretation of Move Forward Party leader's alleged ineligibility to contest the election after also endorsing his MP status, the Commissioner said the EC's fact-finding committee is still investigating the case. Mr. Peter is the sole Prime Ministerial candidate of the Move Forward Party and expected to become the next Prime Minister. Well expected by those 8 coalition partners, but not necessarily by anybody else at this time. Now, another big story in the news yesterday, a regional story, this covered by New York Times. Blinken meets Xi as China and the US try to rein in tensions. And there's a photo of the US Secretary of State meeting the President Xi of China. I would say that's a very significant photo. And the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, met with Xi Jinping, China's leader, yesterday as the 2 governments sought to pull relations out of a deep chill that's raised global concerns about the growing risk of a conflict between them. The 35-minute meeting, which capped a 2-day visit by Mr. Blinken, sent a signal, at least for now, that the United States and China do not want their relationship to be defined by open hostility. Mr. Blinken and Mr. Xi held talks at the Great Hall of the People, the grand building on the west side of Tiananmen Square, where Mr. Xi often receives dignitaries. The 2 countries have opposing positions on towering issues including the status of Taiwan, the Chinese military's growing footprint, the development of advanced technologies, Russia's war in Ukraine, and human rights. And we'll read this paragraph in full. Many of the issues have bedeviled US-China relations for years, but clashes over them have become much more acute as China's military and economic power have grown, and as Mr. Xi and his aides perceive the United States to be in terminal decline. It's unclear whether high-level diplomacy can change the trajectory of relations, but US officials say they hope at the very least that such talks will allow each side to see more clearly the intentions of the other to avert miscalculations. An excellent article by the New York Times. Let's check some regional reportage of the same issue. Disastrous for US to decouple from China, Blinken says after meeting Xi during Beijing trip to salvage ties. And this story from straitstimes.com, a Singaporean publication. And going to the second paragraph there, Mr. Xi, sitting at the head of a large meeting table in the Great Hall of the People, told the American top envoy and his delegation seated to his right that the world needed a stable US-China relationship and that other countries are unwilling to choose sides. And Mr. Xi saying that both the US and China have a responsibility to inject stability, certainty and constructiveness into a turbulent world. During the talks, Mr. Xi emphasised that China respects the interests of the US and will not challenge or displace it, but the US must also respect China and not harm its legitimate rights and interests. And he said neither party would try and shape the other by its own will, still less deprive the other of its legitimate right to development. And in a press conference held after the meeting with Mr. Xi, Mr. Blinken gave the assurance that the US does not seek to decouple from China, but is looking to de-risk and diversify. With nearly $700 billion in trade last year, it would be disastrous for us to decouple and stop all trade investment. So bottom line is that they're talking, and I think that's a significant move forward. A successful trip, I think everybody would have to say, by the US Secretary of State, and able to meet with the Foreign Minister and significantly President Xi during his 2-day visit. This is TNT. It's Tuesday, second day of the week, and big thanks to 5-Star Marine for their ongoing support. There's a link in the description if you'd like a special deal for TNT viewers. Our Tuesday TNT, and whilst the last story represents a bit more stability in the region, less stability in Bangkok yesterday. People flee high-rise buildings in Bangkok as Myanmar quake tremors felt. This reported by ThaiPBSWorld.com. Many office workers in high-rise buildings in Bangkok and Nonthaburi province rushed into the street after they felt their buildings shake. That happened yesterday morning. And one netizen tweeted that he was on the 13th floor of a building in the Lat Phrao area when he saw ceiling lamps swaying and felt dizzy. The Meteorological Department said in a statement that a 6-magnitude earthquake was recorded at 8:40 a.m. with its epicentre located about 10 kilometres under the sea near the southern coast of Myanmar. And just going to the Google report about the same issue, magnitude 5.6 earthquake it reports, and says that it happened 133 kilometres south of Myanmar, and you can see how close that epicentre is to Thailand. So happening along that same fault line that, of course, caused the 2004 earthquake, which resulted in that tsunami, and will, of course, next year will be the 20th anniversary of that tsunami that happened back on December the 26th in 2004. Now, another update, this from the PattayaNews.com. CCTV reveals Russian tourist in Pattaya was attacked by another foreigner, not go-go bar guards. So it looks like all those nasty comments about the go-go bar guards will have to be taken back. And CCTV footage inside a Pattaya walking street go-go bar where a Russian tourist was allegedly beaten revealed he was not attacked by the guards as initially reported, but rather 2 unidentified foreign men. The guards apparently were attempting to control the situation. And a photo there, the thumbnail of the Pattaya News video on the matter, and shows a smiling Russian man. Not really sure why he's smiling, but I suppose he's happy that at least he's safe. And the report goes on saying the attack came after the victim group reportedly refused to pay their almost 2,000 baht bill. While guards and staff were discussing the bill problem with the victim, another group of foreigners got involved for unknown reasons and then attacked Oleg. The CCTV shows Oleg covering his face with his hands as the foreigners attacked him, which is why he was unable to discern the exact identity of his attackers. According to police, the situation then became chaotic, with the victim still only able to guard his face before eventually falling to the ground. The man in the patterned shirt, the apparently mysterious man in the patterned shirt, however, continued to persistently kick him, forcing the guards to have to remove the injured Russian from the premises to allow him to escape from the fight. So police obviously after that man in the patterned shirt, which might bring some light on what happened with that particular attack in Pattaya. And another follow-up also in Thai PBS World, whereabouts of the 140 million online gambling extortion money, a mystery. Yesterday we reported that some 12 police had been sidelined to desk duties pending an investigation after an extortion of an online gang. But the question's asked now, where's the money? And police are still in the dark over the whereabouts of the 140 million baht, which is alleged to have been paid to police officers and civilians implicated in extorting money from an illegal online gambling network. But they'll summon a key member of the gang for questioning. And so far, 10 of the 12 police officers implicated in the extortion have turned themselves in to acknowledge the charges against them and have been questioned by police. The Deputy Police Chief claims that some of the officers have admitted involvement in the extortion, but the commander of the Chonburi Provincial Police, the highest-ranking officer implicated so far, has denied the charges during more than 2 hours of interrogation yesterday. So an ongoing investigation, and we'll keep you up to date. Another follow-up to a story from yesterday, Thai PBS World again. The Foreign Minister insists informal Myanmar talks are in Thailand's interests. Noting that yesterday the outgoing Foreign Minister, who's only got a few more weeks left in his tenure in Thailand, got together with the other foreign ministers from around ASEAN to have a bit of an informal, non-ASEAN type discussion about the issues in Myanmar. And Thailand's Foreign Minister Don Pramudwinai defended his country's hosting of peace talks, which the Foreign Minister of Myanmar's ruling junta is attending, but's been shunned by key ASEAN counterparts and is attracting criticism of the incumbent Thai government. And speaking to Thai PBS, Don said the forum is part of Thailand's continuing efforts to find ways to resolve the crisis in neighbouring Myanmar. And Myanmar's foreign minister, well that's the junta's foreign minister, attended the two-day meeting which started on Sunday evening and that was held in Pattaya, and representatives from Laos, Cambodia, Brunei, Vietnam, India and China attended. Well that's a lot more than was reported yesterday when it was only the Cambodian foreign minister. And Foreign Minister Don said, "We share a common border of more than 2,000 kilometres with Myanmar. If we allow the crisis to escalate, Thailand will be most affected. No other countries in ASEAN care about finding ways to end the crisis as much as Thailand." So the outgoing foreign minister defending his informal chats with the other ASEAN foreign ministers over that Myanmar crisis. Now, coconuts.co, their Jakarta edition, is reporting Indonesia officially halts visa-free entry for all except ASEAN nationals. So previously, many countries, just like Thailand, have allowed visa-free travel, so you can just arrive, show your passport at immigration, and in you go. Not anymore, apparently. Indonesia's temporarily halted its visa-free policy for 159 countries. Of those, travellers from 92 countries can still obtain a visa on arrival before entering the country. So for those countries, and we'll get to that list in just a moment, they'll be able to arrive, they'll have to apply for a visa on arrival, fill out all the forms, probably pay some cash, and then proceed to immigration. The suspension, which is now in effect following a Ministry of Law and Human Rights decree on travel, affects almost all countries that were previously eligible for visa-free visits of up to 30 days. And the only exceptions are the 10 member countries of ASEAN. And travellers from 92 countries, we'll check that list in a moment, may obtain a visa on arrival upon arrival or apply for an electronic visa on arrival prior to departure to Indonesia. Let's just check that list. We'll go to some of the heavy hitters, and just starting in the left column there, the US, Australia, noting that Australians are the most numerous travellers to the island of Bali. And I'm sure this will be making news in Australia today. The English, the French, Russians, and of course Thais. And strangely, that visa on arrival list includes the 10 ASEAN countries, but that's from the Department of Foreign Affairs in Indonesia. So different travel arrangements for people heading to Indonesia from now on. To our next report, and this is from outbreaknewstoday.com. Not a website I go to often, but there you go, outbreaknewstoday.com. And it says Thailand reports a 282% increase in Chikungunya in 2023 to date. And just noting, this is just another one of these mosquito-borne diseases, and it has symptoms quite similar to dengue fever, although it's a different virus. And according to the World Health Organization, Chikungunya is a viral disease transmitted to humans through the bites of mosquitoes infected. It was first described during an outbreak in southern Tanzania in 1952 and has now been identified in nearly 40 countries in Asia, Africa, Europe, and most recently the Americas. And symptoms usually take between 4 to 8 days after a mosquito bite, but can appear anywhere from 2 to 12 days. The most common symptoms are an abrupt onset of fever, often accompanied by joint pain, and other symptoms include muscle pain, headache, nausea, fatigue, and rash. Severe joint pain can usually last a few days, but can persist for months or even years. Also on that site, this story, Thailand, dengue fever cases could reach a 3-year peak. And a bit further down there, health officials report that there's so far been 21,457 cases of dengue fever since the beginning of this year, which is many times higher than the previous year when 4,400 cases were reported for the same period. Well, that's nearly a 5-fold increase, but in the total scheme of things, those numbers are still quite small. But it is something to be aware of if you're coming to Thailand. Be aware that getting bitten by a mosquito could lead, in the worst case scenario, to dengue or chikungunya. And there are ways that you can avoid being bitten. I've put a link in the description of some tips of ways that we, I suppose, as expats routinely try and avoid being bitten, and we recommend that newbies should maybe check that out. Now, thank you very much for joining in today. There's been a lot of interesting news stories there. We look forward to your comments and presenting the news on TNT again tomorrow.